broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA.
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Checks it again.
TWA announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
You know, when I came out, I heard the end of Bernie's speech, and I heard some of the beginning. No. First of all, congratulations to Bernie. In all fairness, we have to congratulate him. We may not like it, but I heard parts of Bernie's speech. He wants to give away our country, folks. He wants to give away. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let it happen. I don't know where it's going with Bernie. We wish him a lot of luck, but we are going to make America great again, but we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to beat China, Japan. We're going to beat Mexico at trade. We're going to beat all of these countries that are taking so much of our money away from us on a daily basis. It's not going to happen anymore. We have the greatest business people right now in the world. They call me all the time. They want to be involved. We have political hacks negotiating our deals for billions and billions and billions of dollars. Not going to happen anymore. We're going to use the finest business people in the world. We are going to do something so good and so fast and so strong, and the world is going to respect us again. Believe me.
Thank you, New Hampshire. Shortly after the polls closed, Secretary Clinton called and was very gracious in her congratulations. I thank her for her call, and I congratulate her and her supporters. Our volunteers worked night and day, made phone calls, and knocked on a heck of a lot of doors. And we won because of your energy. Thank you all. Because of a huge voter turnout. And I say huge. We won because we harnessed the energy and the excitement that the Democratic Party will need to succeed in November. We will need to come together in a few months and unite this party and this nation, because the right-wing Republicans we oppose must not be allowed to gain the presidency. The people of New Hampshire have sent a profound message to the political establishment, to the economic establishment, and, by the way, to the media establishment. I do not have a super PAC, and I do not want a super PAC. Please help us raise the funds we need, whether it's $10 or $20 or $50. Help us raise the money we need to take the fight to Nevada, South Carolina, and the states on Super Tuesday.
And welcome to TNZ Talk. Tony Trupiano and Richard Zombeck with you to join us to talk about the New Hampshire primaries. Feel free to do that. 347-855-8118. Richard Zombeck is like a pig in dung this morning, enjoying last night's festivities more than an adult man should. But, hey, listen, you're not alone, Z, and welcome back to this Wednesday edition of TNZ Talk.
It was the battle of huge. It was absolutely amazing. It was democracy in action. Wow. I mean, Tony, to be honest with you, I was thinking before the show, I don't even know where to start. This was epic. We have two candidates that are completely against the establishment, are not very well liked by. You know what I was thinking was, what are the CEOs and the boardrooms thinking right now? I mean, what is going through their head? There was a guy, a billionaire out in Seattle, who did a TED Talk and a couple articles, and basically it was like the peasants are coming with their pitchforks, so be ready. And basically saying to corporate America, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep pushing people down. You can't keep ripping them off. You can't keep screwing them. And here we have, Donald Trump is basically one of the billionaires, but he's not well liked by other people in business. He's not like the favorite amongst the billionaires. And he's talking about things too, as far as Medicare and helping people to a degree. And you have two candidates who won in New Hampshire, a state that is, fiscally responsible, and they elected a socialist, and who tends to take the moral high ground, and elected a vulgar, brash billionaire, who wants to close the borders and ban Muslims and get rid of Mexicans and beats people up at his rallies. It's just unbelievable. And the numbers are astounding.
Well, the numbers are astounding, and I think I'm tempering my enthusiasm a little bit, because the numbers didn't surprise me on either side. It was pretty much, oddly, what the pollsters really had predicted, if you believe in such things. And I've been skeptical, as you know. I've not been quiet about that on the air. I think that, though, and we're going to talk in a little while about the exit polling and what that means and the significance of that, because I think we learn a lot more from that than anything else. But this word establishment keeps coming up. And so anti-establishmentism is the word of the day. I'm not asking anybody to spell it out loud or anything, but it seems to me, Z, that when we look at the issues that were at stake, we look at the candidates that did well, and we're certainly going to talk about the undercard, if you will, on both sides of the aisle. But certainly if you are, and I want to make a point here, Iowa and New Hampshire are predominantly white, lily white states. And I think that says something more than anybody's really talking about. You say, well, in a more diverse state, a Hillary Clinton or a John Kasich or Jeb Bush may do better or will do better. That's a definitive. I'm not so sure that's true.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Watching the pundits who are basically just completely Donald Trump, everyone kind of saw coming, right? Because they understand that there's an anger. They understand that there's, someone that speaks their mind. They understand that. But what they were completely surprised by is Bernie Sanders. And he's finally getting the press attention that he deserves and that he needed. Even Chris Matthew, who I've complained about. In fact, I wrote an article yesterday that's up on HuffPost today about how unfairly Chris Matthews has been, how unfairly he's treated Bernie Sanders in some of his commentary, and kind of feigning this ignorance as to not understanding what a democratic socialist is, and saying Bernie just wants to give things away. And I went pretty hard at Chris Matthews, and as it turns out, watching him last night and today, he's turned around on this. He either he's been forced to, or he's had a come to Jesus moment, but they're being forced to really look hard at this. Now, the excuses are coming that, it's because he wants to give everything away for free, and who doesn't want everything for free? And that's not what it is. And I think the longer and harder they look at this and actually have him on the shows and communicating his message, it's going to become a lot clearer, and it's going to become a lot clearer to a lot of people. I mean, this again is like, oh yeah, young people are coming out because, you know, they're dreamers and they don't really know how politics works. And you and I have had this conversation, but some of the people that are of these kids that have been interviewed and are writing blogs and talking on social media, from my shoes, look pretty well informed. Now, you've got to remember too, right? These are kids that came up, that were looking for jobs, that were thinking about careers, that were going into college and coming out of college during one of the biggest recessions and financial downturns in the country's history. And their view and experience with capitalism, which is, you know, so highly held in this country, their first experience with it was debt. Coming out of college with unsurmountable debt and no jobs available and degrees, and they're flipping burgers or waiting on tables or, you know, menial tasks for a minimum wage that you can't survive on. So, you know, this is what they see as what this country can give them. And
well, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
No, I was just going to, I was actually going to go in an entirely different direction, but not in a bad direction. I wanted to comment and ask you to comment as well on the extraordinary turnout of yesterday's primary. And in fact, you and I talked, it was after 7 o'clock Eastern time last night, which is when the polls closed. But I wanted to tip my hat to the governor and the Secretary of State and the Attorney General of the state of New Hampshire, who went to extraordinary efforts to make sure that the people that showed up to vote got a chance to exercise their democracy. And I just think that at a time where we see so much happening with gerrymandering and playing and fiddling around with election rules in states all over the country, that New Hampshire stepped up to the plate is something to be applauded. And we should be thankful that they allowed people, and that did not become an issue, especially a negative issue, as the evening wore on. And so I just think that deserves a little recognition, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, there were 2 miles of cars going to the polls at 6:30, and or 6 or 6:30, and the polls closed in New Hampshire at 7 p.m., and they went into action. They extended the times for voting, and continued and made sure that everyone got a chance to get their vote in. And it was record turnouts. I mean, I think the number I heard was over 500,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, close to over 70%, which is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
One of the things that happened last night as I was channel surfing is the media, and if you were, I know a lot of people don't watch C-SPAN during these kinds of things, and I didn't watch it routinely, but I did watch it a few times. They were actually using the WMUR news feed, which is a New Hampshire television station. But all of the media, both national and local, were very careful to tell people, listen, if you're in line, you're going to vote. Don't worry about it. No need to stress. If you're in a car and you're on this particular road and you haven't been told to turn around, yes, it may take a while, but you will get your chance. And that, to me, was extraordinary as well. I just appreciated the effort, Z. I appreciated the idea, the enthusiasm that the voters brought to the process yesterday was embraced by the political elite, who could have really messed with people last night and really made the right choice. And I'm liking, I'm hoping and I'm praying that it wasn't because it was the politically smart thing to do, because it was the democratically correct thing to do, is why they embraced it. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I didn't hear anything, and I was looking at social media. No disgruntlement at all.
Yeah, no, it was, and there were some articles earlier in the week about there being a hint of voter suppression, that it was going to be difficult for students to vote. And those numbers for the turnout they're not. We run in this country at about maybe 30% of the population coming out to vote. So a 70% turnout are numbers you see in third world oppressed countries that just got democracy and the right to vote. Those are the numbers you see in, when democracy is new to a country and the turnout is looked at as phenomenal because it's 70%. And, we get a 30-40% turnout on average on any given vote, and during the midterms, it's even more hideous. Go ahead.
I'm not going to do it. Okay, I was just going to say I want to play some audio exit polling, both from the Democratic and the Republican side. So I'm going to play these back to back. It's only 2 minutes in total, but that'll give us plenty to discuss on the other side of the audio. Let's start with exit polling. And again, this is not a complete analysis of exit polling, but on the Republican side.
Well, if we're doing sort of a deep dive on what the mood was of the Republican electorate showing up to the New Hampshire polls today, we asked voters as they were leaving the polls today, do you feel betrayed by the Republican Party? This is unbelievable. Look at this. 50% of Republican primary voters tell us they feel betrayed by their own party's politicians. 48% say no. Then we also asked, are you looking for somebody with experience in politics, or are you looking for an outsider? This splits about half and half. 47% want somebody experienced in politics. 48% want somebody outside the establishment. And what's key to note there is that in New Hampshire, of course, we've been talking about that establishment lane. That's the more crowded lane that has to split up that 47% who want experience. That has to split among a lot of candidates. The 48% that want an outsider, there are just probably a couple of candidates that fit that description. Really interesting finding about the Democratic electorate, because we asked voters as they left the polls today, Wolf, if they wanted to continue Barack Obama's policies or move in a more liberal or less liberal direction. Take a look at these numbers. 40% of the Democratic primary electorate today in New Hampshire wants the policies to be more liberal than President Obama's policies. 41% wants to continue Obama's policies, 14% less liberal. We also asked about candidate qualities. What are you looking for? Here again, just like the Republican side, electability not a factor. If you are a candidate making the case that you're the one that can win in November, voters just aren't interested. Only 13% of the electorate is interested in electability. They're interested in an honest candidate, one who shares their value, one who has the right experience, much more so than they are about electability. And I'll say, well, the more liberal on Obama's policies, that's even more than we saw in Iowa. In Iowa, 33% of the Democrats said they wanted more liberal policies than Obama's. Here, now it's up to 4 in 10 voters want more liberal policies than Obama's.
That's pretty amazing. All right, thanks very much for that.
All right, that's analysis on CNN-Z. And so where would you like to begin, with the Republican or the Democrats?
Whatever you want.
Well, let's start with the Democrats. You add up more liberal and then sustaining President Obama, that's 81% of the voters. And I don't consider President Obama to be an ultra-liberal Democrat. Now, listen, anybody elected to the Oval Office, no matter how liberal or conservative they might be, even on their best day, isn't going to be as liberal or as conservative as certain sectors of the voting populace would like them to be. With that said, President Obama, by virtue of the Affordable Care Act, is automatically painted as a liberal. And I'll let that stand as it is. But 81% of those that voted want to make sure that we hold on to that liberal bias, if you will, and even be more liberal. What that tells me is that not only is Bernie Sanders' message resonating with voters, they're actually hearing what he's saying and internalizing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, because everyone's living through it, right? I mean, the message is, you know, it's unfair. The deck is stacked against you. You know, there's no upward mobility. You're being pushed down. You have no chance. You know, and until this changes, you have no chance. So we need to do something about it. I mean, like I said, the pitchforks and the torches are coming out. And, you know, Lloyd Blankfein was on the morning shows last week, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, you know, whining about this. I don't understand why everyone's so angry with me. I don't know why everyone is so mad. I mean, things are going really great for me. I just, you know, and this is what we're looking at. And you and I talked about this yesterday. We didn't agree, but that things have that people are paying attention.
Well, you know, and it's interesting because as we look at whatever the implications of this are, and that goes back to the crystal ball that I have not been terribly good at using in this particular presidential election cycle, admittedly, you know, I wonder about down ticket. I wonder about Congress and the Senate and how this affects state races. And if we, because we often know that there can be a disconnect between the way people vote for the president. There are many states where they voted for Obama, yet have Republican governors or Republican legislatures. Now, part of that's gerrymandering, and I get that. But I do wonder what the carryover of this has the potential of being. And that's where being a political hack like I am really comes into play. This is where I really start to analyze this exit polling data, because I really do want to know what inquiring minds want to know and who they're going to vote for and what kind of candidates they'll embrace. Because you and I both know that as Bernie Sanders continues, and I do believe that he will continue to grow in popularity, if we don't elect a Congress that is willing to support him, you know, we could end up with an Obama-like situation where we've got the right guy at the wrong time.
Right, but here's the thing: is Sanders is on message. I mean, the most important thing, I think, or really, you know, the takeaways from the exit polling on what seemed to matter to people was trust, experience, and message. Right, those were the three main areas in which people were using to cast their votes. And Bernie Sanders has been on message for the last 30 years. He's been consistent. He knows how to look. This is a guy. I mean, Chris Matthews said this too, and I agree with him. He looks like a college professor. You know, there are no teleprompters. He comes out. His hair's all over the place. He's got a manila folder that's dog-eared, and he's got some handwritten notes in there, and he goes out and he talks to people, and he explains things to people. Obama had a clear message. He was a very good orator, and once he got in there, he didn't really follow up. He didn't say, "Hey, look, you know, I need you guys to call your congressman." Bernie Sanders would do that, and there are other elections coming up. There are other, you know, these guys aren't in for good. And if Bernie Sanders can continue the momentum, you know, like they say in Iowa, he's got the mo. If he can continue the momentum, let's say he does get elected, you know, he'll be out there. He'll be talking about this. I mean, the same way FDR was, you know, talking about this and saying, "Hey, look, they're holding me back. You need to get them out. We need to change this. And this is not going to happen. I can't do this on my own." And he will rally the troops. I think Obama held back a little on, you know, they're holding me back. They're fighting me. I mean, he did, but not to a degree that he could have. You know,
I agree. I agree, and we could have a whole discussion about, especially in his first term, the mistakes that Obama made. I have some real issues, but we'll save that for another time. See, let's go on the reverse of this and look at the exit polling for the Republicans, where the where the pundits and the traditionalists in politics are scoffing at Donald Trump, yet the electorate clearly said, let's limit Muslims in this country. Let's get rid of Mexicans. They were on message with Donald Trump almost 100%.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's trust, experience, and message, right? Now, his message tends to be hate and vitriol, and basically nationalism and building walls and getting rid of people and strong-arming people, and it's the outsider. Here's the thing: is Donald Trump is attracting it's the outsiders who are screwing up our lives crowd, and Bernie Sanders is hitting the we can fix this from here, and the problem is here. The problem is with our system. It's not with outsiders and people coming in and Muslims, and and his message is more we have a problem right here. It's with the plutocracy. It's with the disparity of wealth. It's with living wages. It's with our infrastructure. It's with it's the same message as let's make America great again. It's got a whole different cover and jacket to it. And so, and also on Trump, what I found interesting is 46% of the people that are supporting Trump are high school educated or less. That's 46% of people who are fundamentally uneducated in the conventional sense, let's say. I'm not going to say they're ignorant, but I'm saying he's tapping into an electorate that wants to hear this, that wants to hear it's the Muslims, it's the Mexicans, it's the welfare people, it's the government. And, his message is we're going to be great again, but I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I mean,
Well, you say that, but I've got to tell you that Donald Trump has yet. You just said the welfare people. The welfare people are the ones that are voting for him, by the way. He doesn't talk domestic agenda. In fact, he doesn't get specific except to talk foreign policy, to talk the tough guy stuff. He never talks domestic agenda at all in any way, except that we're going to make America great again. We're going to do it fast. We're going to do it swift. We're going to do it better than we've ever done it before. What's it? Define it, Z. I don't know what it is. You don't either, and I don't think Donald Trump does.
Yeah, no. I mean, and he hasn't. Look, anytime he's asked, well, how are you going to do this? Listen, we have a plan, and it's going to be great. It's going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. I mean, he basically came out on stage yesterday, and after kind of being kind and saying, hey, congratulations to everyone, said, I'm going to be the greatest jobs creator God has ever created. That God has ever created. and resounding applause. And then the next day, today on the show, he can say that. Hey, listen, they have standing ovation. People love me. People are crazy about me. I'm going to do great things. And our military, we're going to have the greatest military in the world. It's already 54% of our national expenses is the military. So, where's it going? I mean, how much?
Because I read just statistically that those joining the military is down 14%. Did we ever? And Donald Trump says it's because of the way we treat our veterans. Could it have anything to do with a couple unnecessary wars that we can't get out of? Could it have to do with the fact that thousands of American lives, millions of foreign lives have been lost without a real clear reason as to why? There may be a more profound reason that people aren't joining the military than Donald Trump would like us to believe. This idea, you remember Huckabee was all over Obama about military recruiting. And at the same time, it just seems to me that we never have a complete conversation. I understand it's presidential politics, and we're not supposed to have a complete analysis, right? Why would we want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? But, this is where, to me, the game gets dangerous. And this is where Donald Trump gets dangerous, is that he doesn't really have a clear vision. He does not have a plan. And, we keep forgetting that most presidents can't do a whole lot without support of this thing called Congress.
Well, and I don't think Trump's aware of that. I mean, and going back to what you said earlier, this election, the international implications of this election are huge. Are huge. I think we're going to be using that word a lot. Now
that Bernie's having fun with it, we might as well have fun with it, right?
Yeah, I mean his anti-Mexican stance, his anti-immigrant stance, his anti-Muslim stance, his basically everyone else stance. This is going to cause some problems, and internationally the questions are. I mean, I didn't get to the headlines of papers in France and Germany and England yet, but I can only imagine. I mean the front page of Huffington Post last night was WTF GOP, racist, sexist, xenophobic demagogue wins New Hampshire. That was the front page of the Huffington Post last night after the primary results came in.
Well, and I saw some rumblings on social media that the Huffington Post has outed themselves for the liberal rag that they are. But I do want to come back to that because Bernie had made a comment about the media establishment. And we'll come back to that before we get out of here today. But let me, if you will, Z, because we spent a lot of time the last couple of days talking about robotic Rubio. So he comes in fifth yesterday. I'm going to play some audio from his speech last night in New Hampshire. I'm going to ask the audience to pay attention, and it's only a little over 2 minutes, but pay attention to the end of this because, again, he just can't help himself.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So about 40 minutes ago, I called Donald Trump. I congratulated him on a win for him. He deserves congratulations. He worked very hard, and they did very well. And I know, he worked very hard in here in this victory. And I congratulated him on that. And I want to thank all of you. I know you worked very hard. Our team here in New Hampshire did a phenomenal job. You worked incredibly hard, and I'm grateful to you. Now, we're still watching these numbers. We'll see where it winds up. But I can just tell you, I know many people disappointed. I'm disappointed with tonight. I want you to understand. But I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. Our disappointment tonight is not on you. It's on me. It's on me. I did not do well on Saturday night, so listen to this. That will never happen again. That will never happen again. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why it will never happen again. It's not about me. It's not about this campaign. It is about this election. It is about this election. It is about what's at stake in this election. You see, for the last 7 years, we have a president that's been doing tremendous damage to this country. Tremendous damage. We have a president who is trying to redefine the relationship between government and our economy. Taking over our health care system. Every solution to every problem is a tax increase. We have a president that's doing damage and undermining the Constitution, waging...
And it goes on from there. See, never again will this happen. And then the very next breath, it happens.
Yeah. He said he kind of reworded it a little bit, but he said the exact same thing, right? And I still don't quite understand why he's running against Obama. I mean, where did that? How is that even?
Well, you do know why. Because he was compared to Obama. And so he thought, well, listen, if they're going to pin that on me, then I'm not necessarily going to own it, but I'm going to make sure that I am the anti-Obama. So that's why he ended up doing it. That's where that $375K went. And frankly, it got him a 5th place finish in New Hampshire.
Yeah, and his like I said, he looks like a little boy at recess that's just about to wet his pants. I mean,
yeah, it's not good. We're going to go to the phones again. If you'd like to join us, 347-855-8118. Caller, you're on the air with TNZ. What's on your mind this morning?
I wanted to talk to you about this race and about how it reminds me of Trump reminds me back in 1993 of Ross Perot. I'm not sure if you guys have gone back through his recent donations over the past years, or Bloomberg's for that matter, but it seems like, he was, heavily funding Democrats and all of a sudden pivoted to the Republican side. I mean, have you guys looked at that yet?
At Donald Trump's donations?
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, Donald Trump writes that off as, "Hey, listen, when you're a billionaire businessman, you got to grease the pockets of the people that make decisions."
If you want my theory here, I think he's in this thing, and at the end of the day, he's either going to stay in and Bloomberg's going to pop in as a third party, a la Ross Perot, and split the vote, or he's going to drop out and come in as a third party, or lose and come in as a third party.
I can't disagree with that. Go ahead, Z. Thanks for the call.
I'm having a hard time disagreeing with that too. I mean, this is a reality show guy. There are reports of him 2 years ago talking about this with Republican operatives and consultants, saying basically just what you said. Trump is saying, I can win the Republican nomination. I can do it simply. The media will help me. And the operative saying, you can't just run a media campaign. And Trump saying, I think you're wrong. And as far as his donations, he's got an easy out. He says, look, I paid Democrat. I basically contributed to their campaigns because I needed the help with them, like Tony said, greasing the wheels and getting things done, which only plays to his argument that politicians are paid off, and he was one of the people that paid them off, so he should know, and that he's not getting paid off because he's doing this all on his own. So, yes, we look into it.
All right. Let's go back to the phones again. The number is 347-855-8118. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with TNZ.
Why'd you guys cut me off before? I brought up a valid point and you guys hit the hang up button on me. What's going on here?
All right. Listen, but it doesn't work that way. I didn't hang up on you. You made your comment. We commented on it. You're welcome to call back another day. Listen, it's one of the rules of radio. Anyway, and then he calls back on a different phone number. That's just ridiculous. Z, let's for a moment before we. Let's do two things. The first one is Carley Fiorina. You had posted something early this morning that she has dumped her campaign staff. And the article that I read is, it's kind of scary. She took great joy in firing her entire staff, yet she's staying in the game.
Okay, you might have. I think that was written by Andy Borowitz, Tony.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's satire. Borowitz is.
Oh. Oh, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that to me?
He's a satirical commenter on the New Yorker. He makes things up. That's okay. You're not alone. But as far as Carley Fiorina, what I also did post, which I thought you were alluding to, was that she's saying that she's staying in the race, and I posted that she needs to get a puppy. Because
yes, you did. You did post that.
I don't know why she's. I don't know why. Either she's a glutton for punishment, or she just really has, and I'm going to guess, a gigantic ego and think it's worth. I mean, even Christie is going back to New Jersey to reevaluate his position.
Yeah, in fact, I've got some audio on that, so why don't we go ahead and play that? Because, not that I feel sorry for the guy, but he actually helped us out a great deal with Rubio, didn't he, Z? I mean, it was nice of him to do that heavy lifting. You would have thought that somebody would have given him some love, not so much.
I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory tonight here in New Hampshire. No, listen, you know what? Winning's never easy. And no one's ever given a victory. And the people of New Hampshire's Republican Party tonight have spoken very clearly that Mr. Trump is their preference in this election, and he deserves congratulations for that. The race will continue down the road to South Carolina and the other states as we move forward. But for New Hampshire, they have chosen their candidate tonight, and he deserves congratulations for that. And he has both my and Mary Pat's congratulations to he and Melania and their family on their victory tonight. Mary Pat and I spoke tonight, and we've decided that we're going to go home to New Jersey tomorrow, and we're going to take a deep breath, see what the final results are tonight, because that matters, whether we're 6th or 5th, and exactly how all the final votes will be counted. And because so many New Hampshire residents came out to vote today, it's going to take a while to count these votes. So we want to see exactly what happens. And so we're going to go home to New Jersey to wait. By tomorrow afternoon, we should know. We should know what the vote count is, and that's going to allow us to make a decision about how we move from here in this race. But there's no reason to go to sit in South Carolina in a hotel room to hear that. We'll go home. We haven't been home for 2 weeks, so we can actually get a change of clothes. Which would be a nice thing. And that's right. And so we will go home to New Jersey tomorrow morning. We will make a decision on our next step forward based upon the results that come in here completed here in New Hampshire.
All right. Again, Chris Christie. Go ahead, Z.
Well, as far as the numbers, he was behind Rubio in the results by about 8,000 votes. So, Christie came in 6th after Rubio's 5th, and that was after, jumping all over him. So, if he wants to, go and reassess his situation, and I don't know that he's wanted back in New Jersey. I mean, his approval numbers in New Jersey stink, and he's acted like a real a-hole while he was running for president on what was going on in New Jersey. So he's kind of left them behind, and I don't really see him going much further with much of anything.
I don't either, and the go home and change the clothes thing, reminiscent of Ben Carson last week, who did dismally in New Hampshire. Not that he was expected to do well. Let's go to the phones again. 347-855-8118. Caller, you're on the air with TNZ.
Hey.
Are you there, sir? There you go. Go ahead and ask your question, please. The caller dropped. All right. Z, I don't see, and I'm sure the caller will call back. I don't see that Chris Christie is going to stay in the race. I wonder. Well, we need to talk about John Kasich. I'm looking at the clock and realizing that we don't have a lot of time left. John Kasich did well. I mean, he did well. not great. Now, by the way, an interesting little fact, John Kasich came in second, but it's a record, understand and hear me loud and clear here, it's a record low second. Nobody has ever come in second with so little votes as John Kasich did last night.
Yeah, he's $50,000. He's 50,000 behind Trump. And we talked about this yesterday, right? Was that coming in second is great if you're leading the pack by a lot, but he's really second in a pack of many, right? I mean, he's got Cruz by about 10,000 votes. He's got Jeb Bush by about 10,000 votes. He's got Rubio by about 10,000 votes. They're all hovering around 30,000 votes, 11, and right around 11%. And Kasich is at about close to 16%, but let's call it a soft 16. It's 15.8%. And so, while they can spin it as a victory and second place, he's second place in a pack, and the pack is close behind. So it's not a great win. I think in his case, it's going to shine a light on him more than Cruz, Bush, or Rubio needed. I'm surprised that Bush did as well as he could. In fact, with the votes that he got and the amount of money that he spent, he actually comes in at about having spent about $1,200 per vote.
Right.
In Bush's case, I mean, he put $35 million into ads just in New Hampshire alone, and came away with about 32,000 votes. So 30,000 votes. I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, Donald Trump may have paid $50 a head for supporters, but Jeb Bush is paying $1,200 a head for votes.
Well, and that does matter. It truly does. I want to go back to the Bernie Sanders comment about the media establishment. Rachel Maddow kind of went off on him a little bit on the analysis last night. Tom Brokaw didn't, or Brian Williams really didn't, or was it Tom Brokaw? Tom Brokaw didn't really allow it. In fact, they had switched to the Trump speech right after that. He even made a comment about timing. But Rachel Maddow was not happy with Bernie Sanders last night. And, of course, she was criticized for the debate last week where afterwards she hugged both of the candidates. Now, I don't personally have a problem with that. But, there was a talk long before the primary or long before the campaign began that they were going to try to use perhaps academics as moderators, college professors who I thought were all liberal anyway. And that idea didn't float. I don't think the system's tainted, to be honest with you. And, listen, as journalists, people still still have democratic rights, so they can still vote. And even if we know that they lean one way or the other, I think that their performance as a moderator will be judged face up for what it is. So I don't know that this solves any problems. With all that said, I know Bernie's not had a fair shake with the media, but was it wise for him to call them out like that?
I don't see why not. I mean, he's right in a sense, right? They haven't paid attention to him. They've poo-pooed him. Chris Matthews has been brutal and to a certain degree underhanded. At one point in his commentary, he was I can't remember who he was talking back and forth with, but he said, "Is Bernie even religious? I mean, he's socialist. I thought he was an atheist," and I found that shocking. And he refers to him.
I find that offensive.
Well, it is, and as it turns out, Chris Matthews' wife is running for Congress, and a lot of her funding is coming from people who are very close to Hillary Clinton and the Clintons as a whole. And the Daily Caller wrote an article about that where they referenced the campaign funds and donations. Now, whether or not, a lot of these donations are coming from outside of Maryland, which is the state she's running in. So, and Chris Matthews likes Hillary Clinton. And I saw it with Tom Brokaw last night too. Tom Brokaw was doing the wrap up after the primaries, and the old guard reporters and pundits and journalists are uncomfortable with Bernie Sanders winning to the degree that he did. It's not blatant, but there's a degree of discomfort when they talk about it, because one, they can't understand it, and two, they're comfortable with an establishment candidate that knows the rules. They know the rules. They know what's going on. They can comment on it, and they're not happy with this. And I was really surprised. I was surprised throughout the last month or two watching Chris Matthews openly criticize underhandedly, referring to him as that socialist guy from Ben and Jerry country up in Vermont. There was definitely a tone to what he was saying of disapproval, but I was even more surprised to see Tom Brokaw yesterday talk about Bernie Sanders as it's almost a non-issue, right?
All right. Now let's, and I appreciate that. Can we just, and do not get offended by this. Let's walk away from MSNBC for a minute and just talk about the media in general and Bernie Sanders, because I get where you're coming from, and I do not disagree with everything you just said, not at all. But there has been a systemic ignorance as it relates to Bernie Sanders. And again, I just want to go back to, was it the right thing for Bernie to do to call out the media establishment? And the only reason I question it is when you tie the media to Wall Street and to PACs. Well, are you creating an enemy? And listen, what's that old phrase? You don't insult people that buy ink by the drum.
Ink by the barrel and paper by the ton.
Thank you. So that's my comment. Listen, again, I don't disagree with anything you've said. I just wanted to take a little more global view at his comment and how it relates to the entire media establishment, not just Chris Matthews or MSNBC.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with you on that to a degree. However, I've watched Chuck Todd. I've watched John King. I've watched Lawrence O'Donnell. Okay, so that's CNN and MSNBC. Not only allude to, but blatantly come out and say our hands are tied. Right? If we go after a candidate, they're not going to come back. If we push them too hard, they're not going to come back. And I've also seen all three of them say, hey, there are certain things where our hands are tied that we can't talk about because our bills need to be paid, right? And this goes back to the Reagan administration of, changing the FCC laws and making a news organization a profit center and not showing an opposing opinion. I mean, if you watch Fox News and the prospect of Bernie Sanders becoming president or even becoming the Democratic nominee in this presidential race, you would think that we were coming to the end of days. I mean, that the entire earth is about to tilt on its axis and we're all going to hell. Do I think Bernie? Yeah, I do think Bernie, because I think there are people in the media who do feel that their hands are tied and do feel. I mean, look, Dylan Ratigan sank all left conventional media and conventional news sources because they felt that they couldn't really talk about what was going on, and they started YouTube channels. And a ton of reporters left MSN and CNN and went to Al Jazeera America because they could talk about what was really happening. So the media in this country is hamstrung. And they can't talk about what they want, and they can't talk about the fraud and that's perpetuated on the American public by Wall Street, and that these people have a large role in government and what's said and who's nominated. And right now they're feeling that. And they talked about it yesterday during the wrap-up too. Wall Street is feeling that because here you have an entire segment of the population of billionaires that is used to getting their way and used to being the driving force in this country as to how elections are run, and it's being turned over on them. And that's what I saw in New Hampshire. Whether or not this is going to continue into the rest of the country and South Carolina and Nevada and other areas of the country remains to be seen. But what happened yesterday was a giant FU to corporate America and to the media.
I agree to some extent that is very true. As we have to get ready to wrap up here, I want to remind people that I believe tomorrow night there is a debate in Milwaukee between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. I do want to talk briefly about Mrs. Clinton before we get out of here today, Z. And again, we've only got a couple minutes. The reports, as I've been reading all morning, as I know you have as well, is that her problem is message. We looked at the demographics, and we didn't have time to get into that today. Maybe we can tomorrow. Bernie won across the board, except in two categories: wealthy people and people over 65, which I find to be fascinating in and of itself. Is it the messaging, or is it a trust issue, in your opinion? For me, it's a trust issue.
Well, it's really it's one category. It's people over 65 that are making over $200,000 a year. That's the one demographic she won in. Bernie Sanders won hands down in every single other demographic that exists, including people who own guns. So Hillary Clinton has a problem with trust on two counts. From the Republican side, it's the emails and Benghazi. From the Democratic side, the lack of trust is from her ties to Wall Street. Those are the two issues of trust in both parties, and they're fundamental. Liberals don't trust her because of her ties to Wall Street, her very strong ties and intimate ties to Wall Street, and Republicans don't trust her because of BS arguments like Benghazi and emails.
Well, and I'm telling you right now, where Bernie really needs to sit down and contemplate his future is in the foreign policy realm. I understand, Z, he's never going to win that fight, and there's no way he'll ever be able to say, I am as experienced or practiced as the former Secretary of State, First Lady, Senator. I get that 100%. And I just got a message from Michael Hanley that CNN is reporting Christie will suspend his campaign. I just wanted to throw that out very quickly. Yes, Michael, thank you. I just think that's where Bernie really needs to place some focus. And I didn't read the article yet. I saved it to pocket, but Christina Vanden Heuvel from The Nation did an article that appeared this morning on how Bernie needs to dialogue about foreign policy. And so I'm looking forward to very much reading that. And again, I haven't touched it yet, so I have no idea what the article is about. But that's my only area of concern. Z, we could find ourselves with an FDR in the White House and the proper Congress and see radical change. And let me go back to an article you posted yesterday, and then I'll let you wrap things up for us, about what Bernie Sanders' economic plan could potentially do for the American economy. You don't think I got a little wood over that? I absolutely did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, top economists are talking about, $20,000 a year more in median income, unemployment being down. I mean, just terrific numbers.
Well, bring us home, big brother. Bring us home.
I don't know if you have the article right in front of you, but yeah, it looks like we're at the end of today's show. So if you want to follow us, friend us, sign up for our newsletter. It's tnztalk.com. You can get our Twitter feeds, YouTube, RSS feed, listen to our archives, all the information about us and where to follow us and where to friend us is right there. So friend us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, listen to our archives, and subscribe to us on iTunes and write a review. That helps us to help you and keep going. So
write and rate. Please, please, please. Yes, I'm begging. Z won't do it, but I will. Hey, listen, we also want to thank Ron Spikes, Rihanna, Michael, everybody at Blog Talk USA, team. Z, great show today. Glad to be your radio partner. We'll look forward to visiting again tomorrow. That will do it for us today. And as always, we ask that you be well.